Hello, Adrian here from the Sofeast group, and I'm joined today for episode 150 of China Manufacturing Decoded by Andrew Amirnovin, who is our head of new product development and our resident testing expert as well. Andrew, hi.
Hey Adrian, good to be here. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. I'm good. Quite enjoying diving into the testing that we've been focusing on recently in the podcast, because Paul was on talking about a number of important tests that importers should be considering a couple of weeks ago. But what we're discussing today is not one of the ones that he mentioned. So you're going to be taking us through ISTA testing, right?
Yeah, a lot of our new entrepreneurs who just dive in and getting a product going, all of a sudden they face the reality of, okay, how am I going to package and how am I going to ship this product? And that's when we hear from some of our customers that they ship their product and their package is completely damaged on the destination when they receive it, or their packages are broken up during the shipment process. There's just all kinds of distressful information we receive from some of our customers that are pretty much in pain with what's happening to their product during the transportation process. And I think that this is ISTA process is going to help a lot of people who don't know anything about the transportation and how it can be really harmful for their product packaging.
Yeah, well, if you've gone through the whole new product development and manufacturing process, which is, I know we've spoken about it before, it's a complex process. There's a million different things that can go wrong. So if you finally got to the point where you've mass produced a great product, everything's fine, you don't want attrition to that when just on something as simple as the packaging was not up to the job of getting it, say, over to America or Europe or wherever it's going, Australia, in one piece. That seems crazy, right? So we definitely want to be avoiding that.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. I mean, it would be insane that you spend so much money and time on inventing a new product, and now you developed it. You're all excited about to ship, and all of a sudden, you hear that they didn't arrive in one piece. So for that reason, I'd like to introduce to some of our new listeners and some of our listeners or some of our readers of blogs that they don't know much about ISTA. ISTA is a international standard basically for transportation. They do a lot of other stuff too, but ISTA stands for International Safe Transit Association. It's a well-known company around the world. Their website is ista.org, and they have 3 standards for transportation that I really like, and I would like to introduce it to our readers and listeners. And the one that I believe is the main one that almost everyone who is shipping a product at the least must go with that is ISTA 2A. So they have 3 standards: ISTA 1A, ISTA 2A, and ISTA 3A. ISTA 1A, actually, all 3 of them are well designed for packages that are less than 150 pounds or less, meaning like less than 68 kilogram.
Right.
And that's really a good size package. 150 pound is not a lightweight small package. It's more like medium sized package. And I think it applies for many of, small consumer electronics. It could be for laptops, mobile phones. It could be anything the size of 10 by 10 or less or slightly bigger. So it's a good size and it's a great test. Now, what's the difference between ISTA 1A and 2A and 3A? This is where a lot of the engineers get lost, and they're not sure really which one should I use. Now, one thing I should really talk about right now before our listeners or readers get confused. Now, ISTA 2A is the whole ISTA 1A, 2A, 3A. All three of these are for product, package, or box that you actually, like a carton box, where you put all your packages in the product and then you put them inside this one big box or medium box, and you want to ship it somewhere. That's what we talked about, testing the box, not testing the actual product itself, which may or may not be inside some kind of packaging or box. So we're talking about the actual carton box, where inside it you may have 24, 32, 54 of your products within either some kind of lightweight plastic or some kind of, boxes. But then you put all of that into a bigger box so you can ship and put these bigger boxes on a crate, right? And then ship them through, either by sea or by air, by train. And this is where these boxes will experience serious transportation issues. One of which is very common, and that is the temperature and humidity. So these boxes are loaded into big, huge containers, and these containers sit outside no matter what the season is. It could be summertime and in the dead of the heat, and inside these boxes could be in excess of 100 degrees Fahrenheit, sometimes in excess of 70 degrees Celsius. And that temperature alone, if your product has not been through extreme temperature testing, could actually damage your product. And not to mention the humidity. If it's springtime, there's a lot of rain outside, humidity could go up to 80%. And the humidity could go through these containers and actually get into your boxes and maybe even to your product. Not only could damage the product, but these boxes could get kind of, soft and lose their strength. And next thing you know, they're basically falling apart because of that.
Yep.
And then, of course, there is the temperature and humidity, but also what about the movement and vibration that all these containers go through when they're, inside the boat or inside the airplane or the train, bumps. All of these vibrations really is going to get to your product at some point. And it could damage your product. Some of the components maybe, or some of the screws could come out loose.
Sure.
And then the other thing screws are very famous. If you got vibration, definitely watch the screws come out by magic. Yeah. And then, of course, there is the famous, the guys who are delivering your product. They're going to drop it.
Right.
They're just going to drop it right in front of your house. And you have no idea what side they're going to drop. Top side, left side, right side, angle, and the corner side. And what's going to happen is that they're going to damage either the package or the product inside it. So it's very critical that our listeners and readers actually go and visit this site, ISTA.org, and learn about ISTA 1A, 2A, and 3A. And our recommendation is at the minimum, you should do ISTA 2A. Now let's look at the differences. So ISTA 1A does not really do a lot of, let's say, heavy simulation of real transportation issues. However, it does do the bare minimum, which I think it's still great, better than nothing. If you have money or time or it's something that everyone should do at the least minimum. ISTA 1A. And they basically, you do humidity testing, vibration testing, and then shock testing, which basically is a drop testing. And there's two kinds. You do incline drop and also horizontal drop. And I think, again, it's not simulating in terms of the specification for these, the realistic real life, drop real life, because everything is kind of on the low side, just so that, you have at least a minimum test done. However, if you go to ISTA 2A, it's not 100% simulation, right? But it's at least 50% or more. And that's let's say the benefit of ISTA 2A. It's kind of like the middle ground, less cost for testing, less maybe damage for your box in case you feel, okay, my box is strong enough. But still, there's that little bit of risk you're taking because it's not 100% simulation. And again, it's the same for any packages, 150 pound or less, 68 kilogram or less. And in the ISTA 2A, you do a lot more tests, and a lot of the tests are geared towards real life scenarios. So, for example, there's temperature humidity done. There's controlled temperature humidity. So there are two kinds of temperature humidity. One is at atmospheric condition, and the other one is more of a ambient and real life situation. Then there is the compression test, which I really like. This is the one when you test how fast the box is going to buckle by, compressing from both ends of the box. And this is more like a real life scenario when you're stacking up all these boxes on top of each other. The pressure and the weight of the boxes add up, and next thing you know, the bottom boxes are giving up. And basically, you can just imagine what happens when they buckle. All that weight is going to go on top of your product inside the box, and they're going to be damaged. And of course, there is a vibration. Vibration is supposed to be testing at least at 1.5 or I think it's 1.2 G level. This is GRMS, like the kind of a G force that you can kind of experience. That is actually one of the lowest G's, but still better than zero. And that would help your product to vibrate, and hopefully, and this is typically a random vibration. And there's also another test called shock test. Again, it's a drop test that is done on inclined impact, but as well as horizontal impact. The height depends on the type of the products you have, and there's a minimum of 0.5 meter, half a meter, but then it can go up to 1.5 meter depending on the product, and depending on the willingness how you want to test your product to ensure its quality. And then there's another kind of vibration, and that it's slightly different that it's done. But by the way, there's one important thing about these tests that I want to tell you that it's really, really important. These tests have to be done in sequence. This is probably one of the most important mistakes or misunderstandings that a lot of people who do these tests don't understand it. If you do these tests out of sequence, this test is not valid. And the reason is because, as a reliability expert, I know, and I can tell you, the guys who designed this test, they were very, very wise and very experienced in reliability. What the sequence does is that it shows you logically what is going on if, like, for example, third sequence fails or fifth sequence fails. There are 6 tests here. That means 6 sequences. And you have to start from 1 and you have to go sequence 2. You can't go from 1 to 6 and 1 to 4 and do it all in random. Then your whole logic of what you're doing will be no good. So that's why there's 2 vibration. There is a vibration before drop test, and then there's a vibration after drop test. And the logic about that is that, okay, your movements is happening during the transportation, and then things drop. Now let's do another movement vibration to see if anything really damaged it excessively, that this last vibration will bring out those and will show you the defects and the failures. If you don't do it in this order, you may not see those defects and failures. I'm glad I remembered that. That the sequence is one of the most important features of this test. So there is another version. It's called ISTA 3A. And let me tell you why I like this one also, but it may be a little bit overkill for some products and maybe perfectly right for some others. So you just need to choose this based on your product type. Now, ISTA 3A also is for packages less than 150 pounds or 70 kilograms, 68 kilograms. However, this one is for full simulation of actual transportation issues that could happen. And then because you simulate it, then you'll find the issues, you'll fix it, and then you should almost have zero issues when it comes to packaging. This one is very thorough, very detailed. It has slightly more tests than, for example, ISTA 2A. ISTA 1A, if you recall, there were 3 tests. ISTA 2A had 6 sequence tests, right? Guess how many tests ISTA 3A has? Exactly 11 tests, which is almost double ISTA 2A. So from cost point of view, there's more tests, so it's going to be expensive. It's going to take more time. But from quality and reliability point of view, if you got a fragile product inside a box and you want to assure that it's going to get to the destination without any kind of buckling or any issues, I would say this is the right test for you. That's why for typical consumer electronics and or typical consumer products, I would say ISTA 2A is sufficient and it's well balanced in terms of cost, in terms of durability that it offers for your product test. I would say definitely go with that. But ISTA 3A with 11 sequence tests really gives you a simulation of tests in there. There is, of course, temperature and humidity. There's drop and random vibration. There's 2 different kinds of random vibration. One of them actually simulates trucks, air, and and train. There's different kind of drop test, and there's rotational shock test in case what happens if the product is rotating in a heavy way, and how could it impact. So and then there is, of course, impact test, and so I really like this one, but I definitely prefer ISTA 2A for majority of your test needs. I think it would just be just fine.
My one question at this point, I suppose, is this seems like it's almost essential. So is it actually mandatory to do it?
Excellent question. Actually, it is not mandatory, and you don't have to do it if you don't want to, but we totally strongly recommend that you do it because you just do it one time per product type that you're going to have, per packaging type, and then that's it. And then you have peace of mind that your product is going to be okay, or it's going to fail and you're going to find the issues and you're going to fix it. And then you're going to be okay that, hey, thank God that I did test it.
Okay. So you've covered those, the different ISTA tests, and you've shown why 2A is perhaps a good option for many, many importers. I think a big question that a lot of the listeners are going to be thinking is, okay, that's fine. We get why it's important. What would it cost though?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Well, ISTA 1A definitely costs less than possibly maybe $500 or around $500. And I
Hmm.
think it's a feasible test for most, products that are not very expensive, and you don't really need total, let's say, good quality at the end. So if you don't have a very high priced product, I think ISTA 1A will be just fine. Now, ISTA
Hmm.
2A is slightly more tests, more structured to simulate transportation. I think ranges anywhere from 600 to $1,500, depending on type of product you want, and maybe you want them to do additional tests and so forth. So, or you want them to do less tests. So it's it all up to you. It's your product,
Hmm.
and you're testing to see if your product is going to make it to the destination. So between 600 to 1,500. However, when you go with ISTA 3A, it's gonna jump in the price considerably. It could go range from 1,000 US dollar up to 3,500, depending on who tests, where it's being tested, and the kind of product you have. And if you have a very complex, high price product, or medical product for per se, for example, medical electronics, and or test and measurement product that, damaging could take the product out of calibration. So if you have very important product, I would definitely do ISTA 3A. And I think that if you have a high price product, 33,000, 3,500, probably not uh, a huge cost for ensuring your package to arrive without any kind of damages.
Mm. As testing goes, then actually, this type of testing, although really critical for helping to get your product to its destination in one piece, is relatively affordable.
I would say so. I think depending on the type of the product you have, this cost is definitely affordable. There is one
Mhm.
more thing that I'd like to say.
Yep.
Some of our customers might say, well, okay, I did the Easter 2A and I have a report and it says it passed the test. What does that
Mm.
what does that mean to me?
Good point.
Well, I would say, well, it means peace of mind. It means that your packages, the carton, the material on the carton, and the strength of your carton is strong enough that you should have technically no issues or of package shipment, all the way to the destination, from
Hmm.
manufacturing all the way to destination. Now,
Right.
a little disclaimer, there's always
Right.
the possibility of humans in the middle that are handling the packages could actually damage the packages, and or some unintended situations that, for example, the package could get wet on the bottom, while you're laying on the ground. And then when you pick
Mm.
it up, it could just, fall apart. That is really has nothing to do with the fact that the package was tested. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
other things could happen that could impact packages being damaged during the transportation that may not have anything to do with the package strengths or ISTA testing. So that's one
Right.
caveat.
In general, though, we're reducing risks here.
Exactly. That's the whole point of doing this test, making sure
Yeah.
that you don't have any issues while transportation.
Hmm.
Because if you have issues during the transportation, you're going to have all kinds of heavy cost issues because you have to pay someone to pick up the pieces and put them all back together.
Hmm.
And then you have to go back, try and get the new packaging. And honestly, you really don't want to be in that situation. Some of our customers might come back and say, well, I did this 2A test and now it failed. What
Mm.
next? Well, the first question I would ask is, what sequence did it fail? For example, if it failed right at the beginning, well, definitely you have a very, very weak packaging, and the carton that you've chosen is not suitable for shipment, and you immediately need to get with some consultancy in terms of what type of carton box you should choose. However, if it passed all the way to the number 6 sequence, but only on the last one it failed, yeah, maybe I would consider that a pass. You see what I'm saying? So,
yes.
Yeah, if it passed all the critical tests, like compression test and the drop test, and the first vibration, no issues. The drop test after that, no issues. But up the last vibration, it failed. I wouldn't worry too much about it. Again, this test is not mandatory. It just gives you information about your packaging. However, if it did fail on the vibration and you're nervous about it, then you just fix it by going with a carton that is slightly thicker and more stronger. And that should resolve the problem. When should we start thinking about packaging and carton box choices? Yeah, the best time to do it is right before mass production starts, right in parallel when the last build is being done for the product. And like, let's say, for example, 2-3 months before, I'd say 2 months before the mass production starts, it's an ideal time to think about what kind of carton packaging do you want. Because, 2 months before mass production is just the right time when the product shape and form and weight and design is coming to an end. Basically, you know what the product is going to look like, how it's going to function. You might even have a box already made for it. Individual box. For example, if we talk about Apple iPhone, so you have the iPhone box already made. You know what the size and shape is going to be, the weight of the box. And you then start choosing how many of those, making a decision with the team, how many of those are you going to put and place inside one big box, right? And then how many of those boxes on a crate, right? This is how you basically plan the whole thing, because it has to fit the crate. Otherwise, they either can't pick it or they can't put it somewhere. It'll be a non-standard size. Okay. So once you have decided how many of those boxes would get into a box, now your box size has been determined, small, medium, or large, whatever. And the dimensions, for example, 20 by 10 by 15, whatever,
Right.
The size has been determined. Now the box strength, there are many box manufacturers, carton manufacturers online that you can actually go to their website, and they will have a guide that would say, okay, how much your box is going to weigh, and basically it will give you a guideline of what kind of, like, should it be 2-layer box or 3-layer, 4-layer, and that determines the strength of each box. And once they have determined the box type, then, by the time the production starts, they know which vendor is going to provide the boxes, and they know they have a procedure written how at the end of the production, how they're going to lay those individual iPhone boxes inside the big box. And then, once they put it in, how they're going to package it and label it at the end of, each big box, according to the transportation rules. And then once everything is done, they will weigh the box and make sure that, nothing's missing. And then they will ship it through, the process.
And it's also, am I correct in saying that when you actually do the testing, you're going to use actual samples of your product? So if you referred to Apple iPhones, for example, these are the phone. It comes in its retail packaging, which is a very fancy, colored cardboard box. They're actually quite small these days. So you're going to get a whole bunch of those and put those in the actual packaging that you're testing, right? Because you want to have the exact boxes and the exact weight of the products in there when you're testing. Is that right?
That is an awesome question. Thank you for bringing that up. A lot of people make a mistake and they think that, well, I'm just testing the carton box. I can just put some empty boxes inside. I can just put some other products inside. I can put pieces of rocks inside. No, it really doesn't work that way. This is a real life test. And whatever product that you're trying to ship, yes, iPhone each is $1,000, but trust me, Apple actually does put real iPhones inside those boxes, and they really run them through impact tests and drop tests. And if any of those iPhones damages, they are lucky that they caught it. Because you're going to get 1 or 2 iPhones damaged this way rather than a whole bunch of them damaged because you didn't catch that issue.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you're probably talking about hundreds rather than millions or something like that. So, yeah.
And not to mention what kind of money you have to spend to kind of fix the issues.
Yeah, that's all clear so far. We've covered most of the important points here, even down to carton types that you might be selecting. I mean, when we look at packaging types, we have actually written a long guide on Sofeast about the types of packaging. It's one of our more popular pieces of content, actually. So I'll include the link to that in the show notes.
One more thing, Adrian,
yes.
I think it's worth mentioning here to our listeners and readers is that all this information is just based on, my experience working in the industry. All these information should help guide them through and find their way. And then by understanding these, it should help them to do the right test. We're not saying that you have to do 1A or 2A or 3A. We're just saying for some guideline giving you, so it should help you to make the right.
Well, I think when you're trying to decide which type of testing is important for your product, and I don't only mean transport testing like this for packages in transit, I mean any testing, I suppose you would always recommend that it's good to go out and speak to experts and actually pay experts to help you to go through the options and to devise a suitable testing plan for your products and things like that. And that would include getting advice on ISTA. But yeah, what you're doing today, you're just giving some introduction to it.
Yeah, I think that a good, let's say, very experienced reliability engineer should have some information about this. But in case you have a product and you're trying to ship or write about to produce it, contact us and we'll see what kind of product you have, and then we'd be glad to help you through.
Nice. Okay, thanks, Andrew. That's a great introduction to ISTA. And again, check the show notes, please. I'll leave some links to content that we've created about it. And as Andrew says, if you want to get in touch with us and talk about testing for packages or for any other types of testing or anything else, you know where to go, right? Sofeast.com. And we'll be happy to give you some friendly advice. So to all the listeners, thanks for tuning in once again. And to Andrew, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Adrian. Really appreciate it. See you next time.
Thanks again for listening to this podcast brought to you by the Sofeast Group. We're on a mission to provide you with everything you need to manufacture effectively in Asia, including inspections, auditing, new product development support, contract manufacturing, 3PL warehousing and fulfillment, and much, much more across Asia's key manufacturing areas. Visit us at sofeast.com, that's SOFEAST.com, to learn more and get help. If you've enjoyed the podcast today, please do rate, review and share, because it will really help others discover us too.